Hey, it's Luke, the warehouse manager here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about SRide today. You know, I think of SRide as the company I go to when I want to get a seven-speed cassette that isn't trash. Their seven-speed cassettes are all nickel-plated, and from the seven-speed to the 12-speed cassettes, they're all of equivalent quality, which is high quality. I used to run a bunch of seven-speed cassettes that honestly were made out of pot metal, and I'd blow through them in about 3 weeks. And also, I'd dust my chain and my chain rings in the process. And seven speed, eight speed, nine speed, well, specifically seven speed, eight speed, it really isn't considered something that's ridden by serious cyclists or people who actually know bikes or anything like that. And so it's very frustrating for me that it's all very low quality. There isn't a good option. And S-Ride at that in that range, I really think it's not priced competitively with what's sold by other components manufacturers because it's priced above seven and eight speed stuff, but it's priced accordingly with how good it is. And I believe it's far superior to the other seven and eight speed options that are out there. Unless you're going new old stock or anything like that. Although Box makes some really good stuff, but it's all primarily downhill. It's not really geared for commuting or recreating other than specifically downhill stuff. And you know, I run an 11 to 34 on my bike. I have one of those Rivendell 7-speed hubs that they sell, and we have a few in stock too. And really, I just went seven speed because I had a very specific derailleur that was very limited in what it could take, and I wanted to run that, so I built my whole drivetrain around it. And I think that's something really cool that S-Ride allowed me to do. But so why S-Ride? So I'll give you a little bit of background on S-Ride specifically. Um, S-Ride, it was started by engineers and employees of one of the big S companies, one of the big components manufacturers. And it was started in the wake of one of those large companies leaving China in about 2013 or so. And, all these folks had know how, they had the manufacturing capabilities, design expertise. They'd been brought completely up to speed and knew how to take something from A to Z in manufacturing when it came to bike components. And it shows in what they can do. Specifically, here's a 12 speed uh, rear derailleur for reference. I've said this before in other videos where I don't think that current components are all that pretty. They're sure cool looking. And, to a degree, I'd say this is pretty in a brutalist kind of way, but it's definitely cool. And, the quality of manufacturing, the strength of the springs, the everything that goes into it's apparent when I handle it. And so SRAM took that expertise, and there were a few other companies that responded as a result of it too that opened at that time. But SRAM's the one I'm focusing on today. And in just a short time, I mean, they really had their opportunity when the pandemic struck, and there were a lot of um, freeze ups with supplies and manufacturing, etc. And that's how I heard of SRAM. And then I've gotten to learn more as I've been here. And I love what they do, and I work with them regularly. I correspond with Rita over there, and work on projects and suggest products that they try out, and they send us different prototype projects they're working on. There are actually a couple right now that are in the works that I think are really interesting, that I feel like are really filling a gap in the market left by other manufacturers. So anyway, and I have some footage here of the factory and what it looks like. And I think the thing that I take away more than anything while I'm watching these videos is that while obviously, yes, there's a lot of heavy machinery being used, a lot of automation, a lot of polishing, finishing work, final assembly, it's all done by hand. It's very much something that real people are working on. It's not just done willy-nilly. It's not like there's a giant $2 million machine that assembled all this. This was hand polished by someone in China after all of the parts were measured, weighed by hand, and then the chamfering was done by hand. I can appreciate that. I think that I'm I'm guilty of this. I know that other people are, but I'll speak for myself. I'm guilty of this idea that if it isn't made uh, in, say, a rural town in Connecticut, it's on handmade. If it isn't made, proudly in the United States of America, that somehow, in some way, this product's inferior, or that there wasn't human touch involved at some point in the process of manufacturing. And so, watching these videos for me, it really allowed me to understand who's behind SRAM and kind of what they stand for, which is high quality at an affordable price that is very competitive and in many ways superior to anything competing in its price class. It punches well above its weight, in my opinion. So I'm interested what you all think about it, and um, you know, I'd love to have any questions that you have sent over to Rita at SRide. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them. And I think that for me is what this brand spotlight series that I'm trying to work on is. I think this is why it's important. It's because if you have questions as a consumer, I can get them answered for you. It's not like these are just companies operating in a silo. They are very much accessible. And anyway, I think that's what's been so wonderful working here is that I've gotten to know these people personally, and it's been a pleasure to work with them day in and day out. So anyway, hope that was informative. I'm just trying to put a quick video together today, and please, any questions or comments you have, I'd love to hear.